Welcome to the Late Night Race Review.
McLaren celebrate a 13th win at Spa, and it's a 1-2 as well.
Great afternoon. Really good.
Let's go.
Really good job, mate. Really good.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Verstappen 1.2.
Leave me alone, please. Like I have got information and then when he's getting close, I have too much information. He becomes the door.
Don't forget to support the podcast by hitting those like, follow and subscribe buttons.
Welcome on into the Late Night Race Review. My name is Aidan Scott, and joining me as always is Isidro Gonçalves and our American panelist from across the pond, Damien Scott. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing well, thank you.
Yep, all good. Thanks very much.
That's good. That's good. Isidro doesn't sound like a spooky ghost.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. The spooky ghost has been banished. We got the Ghostbusters in. Inside joke, folks. Nobody will probably understand what we're talking about, but we had a really good laugh about it last night. But anyway, folks, we are here for the Belgian Grand Prix. And yes, I know we're a day later than normal. But yes, this weekend we had the Belgian Grand Prix. And after, what was it, about 2 weeks of a break, no F1, nothing to talk about and nothing to discuss. But that's an absolute lie, because there was a ton to discuss, because there was a bunch of F1 news. So yeah, folks, before we get into the Belgian Grand Prix, because obviously, look, it was a great weekend. It was great to have F1 back on our TV. We do need to talk about some of the biggest news stories that are absolutely rattling the F1 world. And probably the biggest news story that everyone's going to probably still continue to talk about right up until, I'd say, 2040 million is the fact that Christian Horner was fired from Red Bull and replaced with Laurent Mekies. Now, chaps, I know obviously this is a big talking point. We obviously have a lot of opinions on this one. There's a lot of, conspiracy theories. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that, will say, oh, it was this and it was this and it was this guy and this is why it happened. But there's two questions I'm going to ask you. We'll skip straight to it, and we'll get everyone's opinion on this one. And of course, everyone, do let us know your thoughts below in the comments. First of all, Isidro, right? I want to ask you, why do you think Christian Horner was fired? And why was Laurent Mekies called up to be the replacement?
I think that the reason for Horner being fired, that couldn't prevent Max to leave to Mercedes. Basically, we'll get a notification next week during the silly season saying that Max has joined Mercedes. And I think that's why Horner was fired. He couldn't keep Max in. So, and why getting Maki? I think it's just it's in the family. It was just a matter of knocking next door, come on in, join us, and it might be a step up. It's definitely a step up going for a team principal at racing at Red Bull Racing is definitely a step up in career. And so far, one GP, and I think he's ready.
Yeah, and like the thing about it is though, and Damien, we'll come to you now on this one as well. I've definitely have many questions for you on this particular topic. But Isidro, the one thing I kind of want to ask you on this one, right? Laurent Mekies, yes, he's had a good result so far with Racing Bulls. He was at Ferrari and he's been at other teams and stuff like that as well. But in terms of Red Bull, like, do you think he is the right guy for the job? I'm not trying to put this guy down. Look, as I said, he's had somewhat of a good run with Racing Bulls. He's had some good drivers under his belt there. I mean, you've got Yuki Tsunoda in at Racing Bulls. You had Daniel Ricciardo. So like, there's been a couple of good drivers, and obviously Isaac Hadjar as well. But like, do you honestly think he is the best replacement for Christian Horner? Because if you look at the two guys, Christian Horner, he was ruthless. He was a badass. He was a very cutthroat sort of person. And for a team like Red Bull, do you think Laurent Mekies can kind of live up to that caliber? Or is it really a case of, well, maybe we don't need that caliber of Christian Horner anymore. Maybe we need a fresh start. Do you think he's up to the job?
I think we can compare Horner with Mekies. They are two different people. And I think that's one of the reasons why Red Bull went with Mekies, not only because he was available as part of Red Bull family, but maybe because they want to change how things are. Because Horner was creating it was a toxic environment under Horner. So I think they want to change that. And if they want to change more, Helmut Marko should go as well. They want to clean the house and start fresh.
Do you know, I totally agree with you on that one. I totally agree. I would love to see Marco gone as well. It's just, it like, obviously, look, there's a lot of things I could wish to say on this podcast about him. I won't do it because we're going to try and keep it as PG as possible. But personally, I'm not a fan of Marco. But the other thing about it as well, like there's obviously all these rumors that are floating around. And I think the main sort of culprit that it points to is Jos Verstappen. Like when all this kind of broke, I think behind the scenes, like we all like the news headline that we seen was Christian Horner has been fired. But if in the background, in a slightly less sort of, take away the opacity a little bit on these letters, all you could see in the background was Jos Verstappen. You could see a faint little outline of the word Jos Verstappen. Damien, do you think Jos had something to do with this? Because personally, look, I've been following this story, over the last couple of weeks on the build up to to Spa, and it just, I mean, you look at last year when it came to Jos Verstappen, he was obviously very vocal about Christian Horner wanting him gone, and obviously he was kind of pulling the ear of Helmut Marko to try and push him in that direction. Do you think this was like partly yes to do with Jos Verstappen, but then also, as a result of Max possibly going to Mercedes?
With these situations, it's never just one thing. It's a series of unfortunate events that, always add up to it. And I think Jos Verstappen not liking Christian Horner is one of the big items for sure. For Horner, it started off obviously with his internal issues and the whole internal review thing they had 18 months ago. I think with performance issues, the team not doing so well, the second seat problems, it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts. But definitely Jos Verstappen, I think, had a big hand in that. I think Horner as well lost the backing or the trust of the Thai part of the ownership, which is like 51% of the greater Red Bull company. So it all added up, and he probably should have gone a year and a half ago, whenever that was, but he hung on, and fair play to him as well. Like, he's been there for 20 years, and I think that longevity kind of saved him a little bit. Never mind the allegations, just from the sporting perspective, that is. But definitely Jos Verstappen had to be involved in this somehow. And I saw Nico Rosberg on the grid walk yesterday as well, grilling, which was a really good watch. We need more of Nico to get to the finer points of these conversations. But who knows where Max will end up now? I'm not so sure he'll go to Mercedes. I don't know. I think 2026 is a big gamble for any driver moving. There's a lot of unknown. The Mercedes car could be crap. Who knows? But it's a bit of a gamble. So I think he might stay, and then maybe 2027 we'll see about moving. But watch this space, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously we can kind of go into that sort of next sort of talking point, which was obviously it was big news even going back to Silverstone. So this kind of news has been going on for over a month basically now. Like we even heard this before Silverstone. There was rumblings of Max Verstappen possibly, going to Mercedes, that Toto Wolff had been talking with Max, and there was possible negotiations going on there. And that's a huge move, and that's a very bold statement to make. Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull, the team he started in. Essentially, that team has been built around Max Verstappen. I mean, the car alone is built around him. The whole team has been built around him. But then when push comes to shove, it feels like him going to Mercedes. It's a very difficult one, It's a very difficult decision, especially for Max Verstappen. Like, I know obviously he wants to have another championship under his belt. He wants to be the 5-time world champion or 6-time world champion. He wants to get more wins. He wants to, keep on dominating the records and things like that. But, it's a very bold statement in itself to even think that could he have actually been talking with Toto Wolff? Like, I know obviously drivers, they like to talk to other teams and they'll always go where the best opportunities are. But it just, to me personally, it's just funny. Like, when you kind of see the whole team sort of imploding, Horner going, Adrian Newey going, all these things just sort of falling apart. The championship is, falling away from them this season already. It's just funny to kind of see a team that not only like a year or two ago, not even a year or two ago, maybe a year and a half ago, was just impossible to touch in terms of, being some sort of competition. It's just funny to see this actually happening. But apparently now, though, yes, like the rumors are that Max is possibly looking at going to Mercedes, but we did somewhat get confirmation. But again, look, this is all rumors and speculation. Like, we can never say like, oh, it's 100% confirmed, because we don't know. Like, maybe at the end of this season, Max could turn around and say, oh yeah, moving to Mercedes in 2026. But like, apparently the rumor, I'm just going to call it a rumor, is that the trading window for Max Verstappen has now closed. So I'd say more than likely we're not going to hear any more of this until possibly the silly season, But what do you make about that? Real quick, just a quick 1 minute answer on that one. Max moving to Mercedes. Do we still see that as a possibility? Damien, you go first. What's your thoughts?
It's a possibility, and they have for sure talked to each other. There was the internet sleuths were tracking Max's jet to Sardinia, and Toto's yacht was in Sardinia at the same time. Who knows? But yeah, they've definitely talked for sure. There's no two ways about it. If that's for 2026 or 2027, I'm not so sure. But yeah, I think he'll probably stay for now, and 2027 is definitely on the cards, depending on how the car looks at the end of next season. But this one will drag on for quite a while, I think.
It definitely will, and we'll definitely keep a close eye on it. And Isidro, real quick, do you still think it's a possibility for Max moving, or do you think that this rumor that this window is now closed for Max, are we not going to hear anything more of this, and we're still going to see him in that 2026 Red Bull car?
I can see that at Mercedes for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows that at least this year the Red Bull is not giving what he wants, and next year, considering that everybody is leaving left and right at Red Bull, so the chances of having a nice, powerful car for 2026 are slim.
Yeah.
Well, Mercedes, even though this season they are not looking so strong, I'm pretty sure that next year to be a different story, and I'll be surprised if Max isn't there.
Yeah, like in itself, like it's so annoying every time you come to the end of a set of regulations, because like you always have this shift in terms of dominance. At the start of the next set of regulations, one team is just going to fire off into the distance for about 2 or 3 years until we come to like near the end of the set of regulations. But at the same time too, you love it because it's exciting, because you don't know where it's going to go. Like we never predicted that by the end of 2021, Red Bull were going to be the team that were going to win the championship and take away that dominance or that dominating crown from Mercedes, and then just take off at that for 2 or 3 years or more, or whatever it was. And now, of course, yes, we have McLaren that have joined the dinner table when it comes to that. But it's just frustrating. Like I wish maybe we would have sort of a set of regulations where we move into a new set and, it's still somewhat consistent in terms of, well, okay, we still have one team that is, a little bit better than others, but all these teams are catching up right from the get-go, and we have like 5 years or 6 years of just super high intense competitive racing, because it's just boring. Like the first couple of years, you're just kind of like, oh, right, okay, this team is just going to take away the fun of it for the next year from everybody else, and we have to wait for everyone else to catch up. But of course, look, we'll follow those stories as we go on, because look, I could go on about that for another 13-14 minutes in itself. But the last sort of F1 news we do need to talk about, because of course, look, there's so many rumors floating around. Like there was Colapinto apparently getting removed from Alpine and being replaced again, Jack Doohan coming back, and there's all those sort of things happening. But the one piece of news that I want to pop in here, because I noticed that during the race, even before the race started off, this is one thing that we've been talking about internally with ourselves. Valtteri Bottas, he is obviously a driver who is definitely on the cards for many teams on the grid for next season. We seen the rumor that was going around there. We had it up on the YouTube channel. We popped a little video up about this, that apparently Valtteri could have been going to the likes of Alpine, but there's a very, very strong possibility, and even his terminology and wording when it came to before the race started there on Sunday, that Bottas could or may have already have signed with Cadillac. So if you put that into perspective, right, if let's say he's one of the drivers, we know Perez is more than likely coming back next season. Could we see Perez and Bottas as a driver pairing? Isidro, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I could see that happening. And from a technical perspective, they would have, it will be most likely one of the best duo drivers, considering their experience. Cadillac would have the best feedback from their cars, from their drivers. So yeah, I could see that happening. It would be a solid team, I have to say.
Yeah, that would be a very fun team to watch. It really would be. Damien, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's, like, obviously we don't know, but do you think that that's how it's going to go?
I think at the moment, most likely, yeah. And again, thanks to Nico Rosberg, brilliant Valtteri on the grid walk again there on Sunday. He was asked, right, come on, Valtteri, where is it? Did you sign? And he was like, oh, I'm not sure what you're saying. I can't hear you. So
yeah.
I think it's that duo is pretty much sealed for Cadillac next year, and yeah, they could be a bit of a surprise package. I think it's a Ferrari engines they will have as well for the first while. So yeah, that's really good. As Cedro said, they're two really experienced drivers that can give the factory some really good feedback for a brand new car, and they're coming in right at the new regulations as well. So. Yeah, that's one to watch, and definitely an interesting time for that new team coming in.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that would actually be really exciting. And hopefully, Perez, he's had a bit of time away from the whole, shenanigans that he had at Red Bull. When I mean shenanigans, the terrible final season that he had there last year with that car. But hopefully with the year that he's had in terms of a break, if this is going to be the driver lineup of Perez and Valtteri Bottas, I really hope they are a very, very strong team, because, like when we see new teams joining the grid, like I know obviously as well, we've got Audi who are basically replacing Kick Sauber. But whenever we've seen new teams come to the grid, i.e., let's say Haas, it's always been a case of they've taken years to actually catch up to being somewhat competitive. So hopefully with Cadillac and with these new regulations, they're coming in for the first time, and with the engines that they have, hopefully they hit the ground running, because it would just be great to see some other team just get in there and just stick it to the likes of McLaren, Red Bull. I don't even need to say Ferrari. I mean, Ferrari who, but, it would just be great to see some just underdog team completely out of the blue come on in here and be like, you know what? Screw you guys. America.
I think it's budget as well, right? Has come in with a minuscule budget. So they were kind of working off a flat pack budget. And I think Cadillac are coming in with quite a bit of money behind them. And I was reading there that I think was it Spa or maybe the Silverstone Grand Prix, they've been going through an entire weekend. Yeah. Kind of like a practice of, this is what we do during a weekend. The people at the track, the people back at the factory, their kind of, war room or whatever they have for the weekend. So they seem to be a serious player. So
yeah, they're definitely not messing around. It looks to be very, very exciting. But yeah, folks, look, there's been so much news going on over the last couple of weeks. Like, I mean, that's the thing when it comes to F1, even when it's not on our screens, there's always news and drama and things that pop up, even when we're on a break. But look, we'll leave it there. We'll park all the F1 news because we do need to move on to the actual event and the reason why everyone's here, and that is the Belgian Grand Prix. So this weekend, we had a sprint race and we also had a main Grand Prix. Obviously, we'll talk about the Grand Prix in detail in a very few moments, but we'll quickly talk about the sprint race. Sprint race kicked off and it was good because it kicked off on time. We weren't waiting for about an hour and 30 minutes. And the FIA were like, yeah, go on, you can go out, you can race, you can do your thing. Don't worry. There's no rain. There's no puddles. It's not wet, you guys. Don't worry. You won't slip. And then eventually we got racing for, what was it, about 14, 15 laps? Or was it 20 laps around Spa or something like that? I can't remember exactly the full amount of laps, but it was great. It was brilliant to watch because the first thing we need to talk about was the fact that obviously Max Verstappen, he was it qualified P2? Yeah, he qualified P2. Piastri was on P1. And it was just the fact that Max Verstappen was like, look, okay, I know I don't have an amazing car, but I'm going to make an absolute fool out of you. Boom, he did it, overtook him. And the incredible defense that Max Verstappen pulled out during that entire sprint race was just another reason why he is just such an incredible driver. You know, like you see really good defensive driving from other drivers on the grid, like, you know, from some of the midfield teams. But when it comes to Max Verstappen, I mean, like I think during the entire time you watch him like defending from drivers behind him, you're just staring at your screen. Your mouth is open and you're like, what's he going to do? How is he going to do this? Who, like, is he going to get by? He's just such an incredible driver. But what I'm going to do is, Isidro, what are your thoughts? First of all, Max Verstappen getting past Piastri. I mean, just that whole scenario there. Give us your thoughts on that.
The overtake that Max did on Piastri was excellent. And it definitely, he won the race there in that moment. Although,
and sorry, just to cut across you, that's the second time he's made Piastri look like a bitch. Or sorry, I'll just bleep myself. He made Piastri look like boop. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Piastri had to fight for the first position, and Max did a stellar job defending that. Although I have to say that it was only 15 laps, because 2 or 3 more laps and the McLarens will catch that Red Bull, and that was the end of the party. But again, this is sprint race, so 15 laps. It was an excellent result for Max and for Red Bull Racing.
Oh, no,
it was close.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was very, very close. And like the thing about it as well, like you can kind of see like with the setup that the car, like obviously Max's car in the sprint compared to the actual main race, like he even said so himself, like the car was basically set up for, was it 15, 16 laps? Essentially, it was set up for a qualifying pace. Like that was it. It was just set on attack mode and go and get fast laps and just go and get that win. Like that's how the car was set up. And then obviously, you know, like that rear wing that they've put onto that Red Bull, that came from Silverstone as well. Obviously made that car not even a rocket ship. It made it into a freaking hyper rocket ship down the main straights. Like as soon as you get up a Rouge and you have that slipstream on the Kemmel straight, that's it. You are absolutely snookered. You cannot defend when you have an upgrade that is on Max's car like that one. But it was just brilliant. It was great. You know, like obviously at the end of the day, Max knows that, look, the championship, it's not going to go in his favor. Maybe it will. Who knows? Maybe Red Bull might pull out some incredible upgrades. I don't know. But it was just the fact that like you could even see that he's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going for this. This is my win. I'm going to get these points and I'm going to show people that, yeah, I am still the bee's knees. But it was great because you could see like Piastri was under pressure. He was sweating to get by him. It was just absolutely fantastic. But Damien, I want to bring you on this one. Piastri and Norris. I mean, even with the car that Max had, like, yeah, it's a dominant car. It was set up aggressively and all this kind of stuff. But do you not think that teams are now going to start to twig on and sort of say to themselves, okay, well, yes, we have no hopes of winning this championship, but in terms of sort of pushing us up a little bit further, maybe in the constructors, do we need to kind of maybe follow this particular suit? Like, do we need to set up our cars more aggressively, bring in these kind of upgrades, bigger rear wings, you know, design similar to Red Bull to kind of put it to the McLaren drivers? Like even that whole scenario there with Piastri and Norris just like really trying hard to catch on Verstappen. Well, like, what are your thoughts on that one?
I think, yeah, Max Verstappen is the key here, right?
Yeah.
He's magic in that car. As I say, you put another driver in there and yeah, Piastri and Norris are passing them no problem. So I think that's the distinguishing factor for one. Obviously you can bring in upgrades, and I think the great straight line speed of the Red Bull was key in that overtaking maneuver. And then yeah, he just held it after that, you know. So
yeah,
he made it tough for Piastri and Norris. They were trying their best. Norris lost his P3 to Leclerc for a while, and he eventually got that back. But yeah, it's like anything. If somebody becomes dominant and they stretch out ahead of everybody else, you know, everybody else is going to try to copy them or try to catch up. So yeah, you only have so long before the other teams will kind of cotton on and copy your strategy or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think with this season it's done and dusted in terms of the constructors for sure. But yeah, the boys behind will be trying to pick up whatever points they can.
Definitely, no, 100%. But like, it's just the fact that like when you look at this situation, like this is now what the maybe second or third time Red Bull have put McLaren into this position where, you know, Max goes out and he just has an absolute dominant qualifying lap, gets his car maybe P2 or P3, and then he just embarrasses both of the McLaren drivers, be it in a sprint race or whatever it might be. Like, you know, even when you look at Suzuka, you know, like with Max there beating Lando, like it's just like like I mean, eventually, you know, I think teams are going to look at this and say, well, okay, there's something there that Red Bull are doing that is McLaren's Achilles heel. You know, like I think that there's something there that's in the formula that Red Bull are going on. Like, I know obviously when you look at the difference in terms of race pace with Red Bull, we'll talk about the race in a few moments, but there's definitely, there's something there that Red Bull have discovered that are, you know, that is McLaren's sort of, you know, it's negatively going against them, you know, like they can catch them out in some way, shape, or form. But who knows, you know, maybe other teams will twig on, and who knows, maybe other teams, well, obviously like McLaren have the constructors, that's what it is, we like that's no debate. But what I mean is, you know, we might possibly see other teams start to sort of catch up in certain areas, but we'll move on from that. Obviously, yes, we touched a little bit on Leclerc. Yes, he did have a good sprint race, but unfortunately, he didn't have the pace on the top three. We could obviously see the difference there, especially in the race as well, when it came to the race pace in those Ferraris. It just kind of even goes to show, like, yes, look, the McLaren drivers and the McLaren car, they're 25 seconds odd ahead down the straights. And, you know, like by the time the race is over, they're, yeah, about 20 odd seconds ahead. But like, you could even see with Leclerc, like he was really struggling out there. Like, Isidro, what was your thoughts just on Ferrari? Like, I know obviously Hamilton, he had a very bad sprint race, but Leclerc and Ferrari during that session, how did you think they did?
I think that considering the whole state of Ferrari at the moment, Leclerc he had a good race, I have to say. It's like Ferrari can have a balance. Leclerc has a good race for Hamilton to have a bad race or not have a good day. It's very difficult for them to have a good Leclerc and a good Hamilton weekend. It's one or the other. And this weekend it was Leclerc. I think is not what he wants, but I think Ferrari is getting there, but it's still far off to get the victory out of that Ferrari.
No, definitely. And like, you know, I've said this each week, Isidro, and you know, I probably sound like a broken record. Like, I am a Ferrari fan through and through. They're my number one team, but it's so hard to watch them every weekend because the car looks beautiful. The car looks great. You think of Ferrari, fast cars, you think, oh yeah, they're going to be dominant, but you just know as soon as that car leaves the pit box, you're just like, what's going to happen this weekend? You know, it's like, oh, where are they going to finish now? But of course, yeah, look, Hamilton, he did have his struggles and stuff like that, but it was still good that Leclerc, like he's such an incredible driver. He really, really is. And I think just he has given so much to Ferrari, and he puts up with so much to get that car into the points consistently. Like, he's had a few difficult weekends, but you know, he's a great driver. He really is. But anyway, moving on, we also had both Haas cars finishing inside the points in that sprint race. That was something that I don't think anyone had on their bingo card for this year. Both Haas cars inside the points. We didn't even have, you know, Kick Sauber finishing on the podium there back in Silverstone. That was on nobody's bingo card, but Haas joining the table in the top 8, because obviously in the sprint race the top 8 will claim points instead of the top 10 in the main Grand Prix. But we had Ocon in P5 and Behrman in P7. I mean, Damien, what happened there? How did Haas go from, you know, nowhere to they were everywhere?
Yeah, Haas have been kind of building up over the past number of races. They're starting to pick up points here and there. They're in and around, you know, just outside the points in some races. So I think they've got a pretty consistent package going together there, and they have, you know, two decent drivers in Ocon, who has a lot of experience, and Behrman, who obviously as a rookie, you know, he has all that youth and energy, and he's trying to prove himself. Plus, he's a pretty decent race driver. So, yeah, they've got a good package between driver and the car. They have consistency. They're not really having, you know, engine issues or any particular niggles like some other teams are having. So yeah, consistency is key to being in the points or in around the points. So yeah, they've had a decent season. Post Gunther, it was hard to know how things would go for Haas, but yeah, they've seemed to kind of settle down, and yeah, they're looking good. You know, they're in around the same number of points as, you know, the teams that are just around him there, like Aston Martin and the Racing Bulls. I think they're a bit behind Williams, but yeah, there's a bit of a battle there for those kind of 4 spots. Sauber is the other team, so yeah, they're going well. They're competing with their direct rivals, and yeah, it was great to see them in the points, and happy for Behrman. Obviously, as a rookie, that was a great boost to his confidence.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I can actually tell you there right now. So Haas are currently sitting in 9th in the constructors. They're on 35 points. Aston Martin are currently sitting on 36. So it's definitely a close battle there between Haas and Aston Martin. But then, of course, we have the Racing Bulls there in 7th on 41. So there's a lot to play for there in the mid to backfield. I mean, we're not even going to talk about Alpine. I mean, wow, that's all I'll say. But yeah, no, definitely, it is good to see Haas delivering on some points this weekend. But one point I'm gonna raise, and look, we're not going to ask opinions on this one. This is just my own thought. I think it would be super cool if Haas just got rid of that Ferrari power unit and went to Honda. I think that would be so cool, because with that collaboration with Toyota Gazoo Racing, can you imagine having the Honda collaboration there? And who knows, even Yuki Tsunoda. Boom, mind blowing. That would be so cool. Anyway, we'll move on from that. That's just a point. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments on that one if you think that'd be a cool one. But obviously, I don't make the rules. It's them. They decide what engines they want to use. But I don't think Ferrari is the way to go. But anyway, moving on. And Damien, I'm going to stick with you on this one. Last talking point, Sainz. He gained some good bit of confidence there in that sprint race, coming in P6, getting some points there for the Williams team. I mean, that was a good result. He's had a very bad couple of weekends, and I think it is good just to finally see him, you know, getting some decent results. What do you think about Sainz overall?
Yeah, he went well in the sprint. All right, getting points for Williams there. I think he got 3 points for P6 in the sprint race. So yeah, that was a good start to his weekend, and I think that's where his weekend ended, to be honest.
Yeah.
In qualifying, I think he was down near the back P15 or something like that, and his result was no better. So, yeah, I think he got caught in a little bit of traffic in the race itself, and yeah, his strategy just didn't work out for him. But again, it's one of those seasons where he's getting used to Williams and the car, and he's obviously not going to be fighting near the top. But yeah, it was more points on the board, and Alex Albon had a decent weekend as well. So yeah, they're chipping away at their points total there. Obviously, they're way far behind the 4 that are above them, but that's progress. If you look at Williams, where they were, 2-3 seasons ago, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of points, and finishing at the bottom of every race. So yeah, JV and the group there have brought them on leaps and bounds, and they've 2 fantastic drivers there to try and progress. And apparently they've got some car for 2026 that might be half decent. So yeah, let's see how they go there.
Yes, definitely. Let's watch this space when it comes to Williams. Exciting times ahead. Hopefully they do deliver, and hopefully they do have a good start to the 2026 season. But anyway, look, that was the sprint race. I quickly X'd out of the tab that actually had the results of the sprint race. So let's move on from that. We'll talk about the main race because that's the thing that really matters the most. So yeah, look, the first talking point before we get into the teams and the drivers and all this kind of stuff, right? You guys probably seen the messages that I was popping into the WhatsApp group. We were talking about this for a good bit of time, when it comes to this particular topic. The start of the race was delayed for 1 hour and 20 minutes. That meant an extra hour and 20 minutes that we all had to sit there and listen to Crofty. I mean, that's just criminal to even do that in itself. But anyway, the fact that the FIA decided to stop the race to let the actual track dry, what the hell? What are we getting at here, guys? I mean, yes, the tire allocation that the drive or the teams have and stuff like that. We've got softs, we've got hards, we've got mediums, we've got intermediates. What the hell happened to full wets? I just want to throw that's a talking point that I think we need to discuss here. What the hell happened to full wet tires? These wet tires that Pirelli have made for these particular set of Formula One cars, like when they go on the track, they take up gallons and gallons of water and disperse it across. If you would have sent those cars out there for at least 3 laps at the start of that race with those wet tires on, you would have had at least a medium sort of dry racing line for them to even possibly maybe switch on to intermediates at some stage. What is happening with this? I mean, there was even at one stage I threw a very, well, not argumentative, but I threw a very passionate message into the WhatsApp group talking about why the hell the FIA aren't using wet tires. And then immediately Sky Sports cut to Toto Wolff standing in front of a huge, massive truckload of wet tires. What is going on? Isidro, my head is going to explode from the anger every time I see this happen, because we had it with Silverstone as well. Excuse my language, folks, but this is getting fucking ridiculous when it comes to not using wet tires. What's going on?
I share your passion. Using it's if I was a wet tire, I would be very sad, because I spent the entire season just sitting in the corner of the paddock, travel from A to B, B to C, and never been used. And to be fair, this weekend was another weekend. Was a good point to use the wet tires for 4 or 5 laps, dry the race faster, get some emotion, because we could see Stroll crashing and get some, and then we have an exciting race because he's not there. But yeah, I agree with you. Wet tires are there for a reason. Pirelli spent time, money, years. People died to get those wet tires prepared for F1, and no use for them. Just
Do you know what, Isidro? I'm so sorry. It's been 2 weeks. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks since we've had the Silverstone episode. Do you know what? There's always, each episode, there's always something that you come out with. And it just breaks me. And you know what? I absolutely needed that this week. I really did. If I was a wet tire being from A to B to paddock, oh my God, man, it's brilliant.
They're just passengers in those big trucks, right?
That's all they are. They're just glorified barriers in case the trucks crash. At least they have some cushion in there in the back. But it's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you look at like the difference. Like, I know obviously, yes, the cars are bigger and safety is a big thing, but I mean, Jesus, I mean, like, Max Verstappen was even coming out and talking about this, and he was like, are we just moved on from wet races? Like, we're never going to have a classic wet race. Like, I know Spa, it's a very dangerous track when it comes to a wet race. Like, obviously, look, we've seen all the accidents that have happened over the years, especially at Eau Rouge. That is always the main turning point of that track that has caused many accidents, and also did cause a death several years back in the F2 race, I believe. But like, you know, like, I just think it's so ridiculous how, like, exactly as Isidro said there, they've invested so much time, money, and effort, and apparently Isidro has, and I'm going to quote him, people have died making these tires. That was a good one. I like that, Isidro. But yeah, like, it's just ridiculous. Like, Damien, what are your thoughts on that one, real quick? I don't mean to speed this along, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's obviously some issue there with the FIA or the race directors that I don't know, maybe some internal sync where they're like, yeah, we're not using the wet tires at all. In previous years, I think maybe it was their Japan last year or the year before, we had a really wet race, and we saw them then. I think that might have been the last time we've seen a full wet tire.
Yeah,
it's very odd. I think in terms of the Belgian Grand Prix this weekend, they delayed because they thought there was another weather system moving in. So they're like, if we send the cars around and we clear off the water, you know, we're going to have to do that again because there's another weather system moving in. So I can see why they delayed on that, but I don't think it turned out to be as, you know, much rain as they expected it to be for that kind of second bit of weather. So yeah, like, Max is right. You know, are we just going to have races where we have to wait for wet? You know, what's the next step? Are we going to have like indoor racetracks? You know, so let's we'll have to investigate that one a little bit more. Do some sleuthing on why the wets are not being used, and, you know, they're all about the carbon footprint of their tour going around the world. Well, you've got I don't know 100 sets of tires that are taking up all that cargo space, just being ferried from race to race. That's, if you're not going to use them, just leave them at home. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an odd one. If it's really, really dangerous, I can see a point of, we wait, but it wasn't that bad. We've definitely seen worse in the past. I'd put it that way. But again, when you're sitting in the car with not great visibility as it is in those F1 cars, it's easy to kind of say it's sitting in on the stands or at home in the armchair supporter. So
Yeah.
that's a different thing. But yeah, we've definitely seen worse. That's the only benchmark we can kind of go with.
Exactly. We've seen worse conditions, and the fact of the matter is, and this is my sort of counter argument to that, not to your point, but to if the FIA suddenly listened to the episode, like, as I said, these tires are designed to literally scoop up gallons and gallons of water underneath the tire and disperse it to the side of the track. That's all I'm saying. That's what they were designed for. That's what they do. That's what they intend to do. And the fact of the matter is that Pirelli send all these teams out to do actual Pirelli tests at certain tracks throughout the year to actually test out these tires. What's the point in doing that? I mean, if you're going to stay, like, there's photographic evidence of a Ferrari car with wet tires on it. I don't know if it was last season or this season. It was whatever what it was, but they do send out the cars to actually test these new and upcoming tires that they're going to be using. It's just absolutely ridiculous, because if we have another situation again where we go to another country, be it, let's say, next weekend, Hungary, it's absolutely pissing down rain. What, are we meant to wait for another hour and a half before the rain goes? That's just ridiculous. We can't have that sort of shit, The race must go on, and they must have the tools to be able to fix that. I understand if it's like freaking Jurassic Park weather, fair enough, but look, that's my 2 cents. We'll move on from that one anyway. But of course, look, let's talk about the teams. That's what people want to talk about, and that's what people want to hear. So the first thing off the bat, Lando Norris, he did qualify P1 to get his car on P1, and because the start was delayed, eventually they decided, instead of doing a standing start, they had a rolling start. So that was a very interesting one. And of course, Lando Norris, he took off, but unfortunately, Piastri decided to overtake him because Norris lost his battery power. Womp womp. And of course, we had that whole battle from the start of the race to the very end of the race of Norris trying to catch Piastri. It was an absolute shit show. When it came to Norris trying to catch Piastri, it just wasn't happening. Yes, at certain times he was catching up to him and, things were happening. But again, Lando Norris making the mistakes, locking up, loads of understeer, lap times deleted, all these little things. And then inevitably he did finish P2. Isidro, what are your thoughts on McLaren's performance?
I think the Piastri did what he was supposed to do. Just get past Norris, say hello, and just disappear into the horizon.
Yeah.
And considering the amount of errors that Norris was doing, you wouldn't catch up and overtake Piastri for the win. Even though Lando was winning on Piastri, I'm pretty sure it was more Piastri trying to be careful and not crash, and rather than Norris doing good, basically, because he did too many errors. But still, 1-2 for McLaren, no surprise there.
Yeah, no, again, another strong weekend for McLaren. And of course, look, I think that's just going to be the theme of the rest of this season, is going to be a 1-2 for McLaren. Or if, let's say, one of them has a little blunder and a car DNFs, which is probably going to be a very rare occasion. I think that's what we're pretty much going to see for the rest of the season. But, it's just the fact that, like, obviously Norris, he's been under the spotlight here, obviously coming off of the back of, he draws another question? Oh, he has another follow-up?
Just a sad fact that Piastri winning in Belgium, he had 8 wins at the moment with 59 races. Leclerc has 8 wins, and it took him 162 races to have those 8 wins. Just a sad fact.
It's just another dagger in the heart if you're a Ferrari fan. That's just another dagger. Yeah, that's just another dagger in the heart. Womp womp if you're a Ferrari fan. Let's all just go cry in a corner, guys. But yeah, look, as I was saying there, look, Norris, he's been under the spotlight because, again, coming off of that win from Silverstone, that was a great victory there. And then coming off of the back of that, going in again to try and, capitalize on top of that and bring that gap between Oscar a little bit closer. I think it was either going to be this race or possibly if he won in Hungary as well, he would have taken over the drivers' championship. But of course, look, it was out of Norris's control when it came to the actual the battery issue. So the pack on the actual car decided to fail. It didn't work because they had their formation lap and then the rolling start, and it wasn't harvesting the energy correctly. And then unfortunately, it didn't utilize it at the correct time. And then unfortunately, he just didn't have the power to hold off Piastri. But yeah, look, Piastri, after all of his moaning and his whining, he eventually got his win. And yeah, he came in P1. He eventually got that, and yeah, he got a smile back on his face. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that one. But anyway, look, moving on, Damien, I'm going to bring you on in this with this next team, Ferrari, Leclerc. Now, obviously, yeah, look, he didn't have the pace on the McLaren boys. No one will probably for the rest of the season. But he drove an awesome race to hold off Max Verstappen. Like, he was on his toes for the entirety of that race. There was no time in that race that Leclerc had a time to sort of breathe and relax and just, have a little bit of free time to kind of go, okay, well, look, I'll try that. It was just sweating buckets. He was literally that meme from the movie Airplane of your man sweating while he's flying the plane. Like, that was Leclerc for that entire race. But again, also, we had Hamilton. Hamilton finally decided to find some sort of performance, and he was on a mission because he started in P17, and then from the get-go, right until the very end, gained 10 positions to come in P7. Damien, talk to me about Ferrari, because it's been doom and gloom here over the past, 30, 40 minutes we've been talking here on the podcast about Ferrari.
Yeah, we were talking about like spooky ghosts earlier on. I think there's like some spooky ghosts running through those Ferrari cars. That's for sure. Yeah, it's really a Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation in the Ferrari garage. Like, we had the comments, I think, after the race qualifying, which they were commenting about the sprint qualifying and the race qualifying. So those 3 sessions had been done, and it was just such contrasting comments from what's essentially the exact same car. Charles was like, oh yeah, like we did a lot better than we thought. We know, like, it's decent. We had a little bit of an upgrade, but yeah, we got a bit better. And yeah, Hamilton was just the complete opposite. He was like, oh, I apologize for the performance, just not going our way, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, he'd qualified 17th and 18th in the two races. So yeah, we thought it was going to be another bad weekend for Lewis, but yeah, fair play to him. He had a hell of a performance to kind of cut his way up through the field, and he just got the timing right as well. On his first pit stop, I think he undercut quite a few of the cars when they were changing from the inters to the mediums. He got that timing right. He found a bit of straight line speed. He took over 2 or 3 cars, I think, at one point within a couple of corners. So yeah, the old Lewis was starting to show his face finally, and yeah, to get himself up to P7 and score some points was incredible. But again, yeah, Leclerc, he had a great weekend, like scoring points in both races, and yeah, he was definitely sweating buckets. All right, if you've Max Verstappen breathing down your neck, yeah, you have to be at the top of your game to stop him getting by. But yeah, I heard Verstappen after the race commenting that yeah, he was keeping up with Leclerc, but he was like, I just couldn't get past him. So they were both having the same thoughts in the car at the same time, whereas they thought they were going to Leclerc thought he was going to get overtaken. He was sweating maybe a little bit too much. He was probably okay in the end, but yeah, he had a great race, and fair play to him. Yeah, Ferrari starting to show a little bit of form halfway through the season.
Yeah, no, definitely. It must be the water. That is the theme of Ferrari. Must be the water. But yeah, no, definitely good weekend for Ferrari in the Grand Prix. Moving on, and I'm just mindful of the time. Moving on to Red Bull. Isidro, let's quickly talk about this one. Damien did touch on it there. Max obviously didn't have the pace on Leclerc. He was trying his best to get by Charles, but it just kind of goes to show the difference in that setup. Obviously, when they were predicting that it was going to be rain, obviously they had to make some sort of tweaks to accommodate for the actual the conditions, but it just shows the difference of even a couple of changes to that car, and it's just, I'm not saying it's not competitive, but going from holding off both McLaren drivers to try and get by Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari. What the hell? Like, I'm sorry, I'm a Ferrari fan, but like it shouldn't really be that difficult to get by Charles or Hamilton in a Ferrari, especially when you're Max in a Red Bull. Now, obviously, look, he did finish up in P4, and then also as well, we did have Yuki. I know we haven't really touched much on Yuki as well, but he did show a little bit of good pace in the sprint race, but overall in the Grand Prix, he did finish P13. But Isidro, real quick, Red Bull, Max, Yuki, what are your thoughts this weekend?
I think that you said everything. I mean, the Red Bull is good for just the 15 laps, but in the full race, they are no match for the McLarens, and there's nothing Max can do at the moment. The way that Red Bull is, not even Max could do a miracle. And Leclerc, he's an excellent driver, and he did a very good defending job from Max. And Tsunoda is just a bad luck from the second seat of Red Bull, even though the weekend was a bit better. There was some improvement, but still no points from Tsunoda.
Yeah, no, definitely another difficult weekend for Yuki again. And I think, to be honest, I'd say Red Bull are just biding their time with Yuki, and then eventually, more than likely he will get the boot out the door, like all the other drivers in his stead. But yeah, look, moving on, we also had Mercedes. It was definitely another disappointing for Mercedes. Wasn't real much talk about Mercedes this weekend, bar obviously, Antonelli having some sort of battles there in the Grand Prix and stuff like that with Colapinto and trying to get back, get by Alonso and things like that. But again, it wasn't really a great weekend. Like, yes, I know Russell, he did finish up, what was it, P5? Like, yes, in the sprint, he finished P12. So he was still able to gather some points. But again, another really difficult weekend for Antonelli. Like, when we look at Silverstone, he DNF'd in Silverstone, didn't even finish that race. But in this, he finished, what was it, P17 in the sprint and then P16 in the race. It's just, like they are definitely having a lot of difficulty with that Mercedes car at the moment. And I know obviously Mercedes and Ferrari, they're the ones that are kind of fighting with each other now at the moment to try and gain those positions there in the Constructors' Championship. But Damien, real quick, what's your 2 cents on Mercedes?
Yeah, they're going through a bit of a bad patch the past 3-4 races. Yeah, I think since Canada, they've only gained 21 points or something like that, whereas others around them have started to gather with a bit of pace. Antonelli has had 2 DNFs and a P16 in those 3 races. So yeah, he's having a little bit of a tough time starting to find his feet in these race weekends in a Formula One car, which it's a big step up from where he was. He's had a great start, but yeah, these weekends are going to happen, and it's all part of his learning curve as such. Again, going back to Nico Rosberg, he was talking about him as well. I think he actually has some sort of financial backing of Kimi as well, but again, he was cutting straight to the point in that he's going to have to cut out some of the entourage around him. I think at Imola, for example, he had his school buddies were at the track, and he had a big kind of thing going on, and he's like, you have to double your time in the simulator. You have to focus and work really hard. This is your first season, and for any racer it could be their last. So
yeah,
I think he has to settle down and knuckle down and put the hard work in. But yeah, he's a really good driver. He has a lot of potential, but yeah, he was always going to have this kind of period, and how he comes out of it will tell us more about his character and his ability for sure. But yeah, overall, I think the Mercedes car is having some issues. Even Russell is kind of struggling. They can't really break the top 4, the podium at all, really, at the moment. So yeah, the break is kind of coming at a good time for them. I know we've one more race next weekend, but yeah, we have our August break then coming up. So yeah, maybe a chance for them to regroup a little and see how we go after that.
Hopefully, because it'd be good to see, you know, the strong sort of performance that they had at the start of the season, you know, come back again, because they're definitely hitting a bit of a dry spell anyway. But lastly, look, we're not really going to touch on it too much, but look, I just want to make a special note of Kick Sauber. Bortoleto getting some points there in the Grand Prix, picking up there the P9. It was absolutely great to see that. Another great weekend in the eyes of Kick Sauber fans. I know for other, you know, teams and things like that, if they see a McLaren coming down there in P9 or P10, it's like, oh, great, yeah, no, look, at least we got a point or whatever. But in the eyes of Sauber fans, they won the championship by getting any points. Like that's the difference there. So Damien, he has a point. What is it?
I think you have to address the elephant in the room, and Liam Lawson having a great weekend, finishing P8 in the race. You know, fair play to him. He's starting to come around. Is he still going to be your dick of the day?
So as I was saying, so Kick Sauber having a great weekend, absolutely fantastic weekend. P9 in the Grand Prix. No, Damien, we're not talking about Liam Lawson. We're moving on from Liam Lawson because just no. He is going to be the forgettable person of my day. That's another thing I'm adding in there. But yes, Kick Sauber. We're finally finishing up on Kick Sauber. P9 getting some points there. Obviously, look, Nico, he didn't have the pace compared to what he did in Silverstone, but it was still great. Obviously, he did get the podium in Silverstone, but unfortunately, he didn't really have. He didn't really have a good pace this weekend in Spa, but look, it was great for the likes of Sauber getting some points there, because at the moment, Sauber are sitting in 6th in the Constructors on 43 points, and that is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful to see. So yeah, folks, that was the Belgian Grand Prix. And no, David, we're not going to talk about the Racing Bulls or Liam Lawson, because I'm going to finish it up with there. So we're going to talk about the top 10. So the top 10 finishers were Oscar Piastri in P1, Lando Norris in P2, Charles Leclerc in P3, Max Verstappen was your P4, George Russell was P5, Alexander Albon was P6, Lewis Hamilton was P7. Some guy who tries for the Racing Bulls was P8. Garfield Bortoleto was P9, and Pierre Gasly was P10. Where'd he come out of? But that was your top 10, folks. Anyway, let's move on. We need to talk about our driver of the day, our dick of the day, and our loser of the day. Isidro, give me your driver of the day, your dick of the day, and your loser of the day.
So for driver of the day, I'll say it was Hamilton. Yeah, he drove from P16 to end up on P7. So that's an excellent drive, considering the whole weekend that Hamilton had and the weather on that day. The dick of the day, it was tough because nothing much happened, but I have to highlight that Stroll crashed into Hülkenberg in the pit lane on qualifying, and you don't do that to the Hulk. So Stroll is definitely the dick of the day.
Hulk smash. And who was your loser?
The loser would be Ajar. That was tough luck. He qualified in P8 and he ended up in P20. That's not good. Not good.
No, that definitely wasn't good. Damien, who was your driver of the day, your dick of the day, and loser of the day?
Yeah, driver of the day has to go to Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, massive improvement from him, and cutting through the field like that to get points after disappointing qualifying sessions. Yeah, he was definitely the driver of the day. Dick of the day, Oscar, probably. He annoyed me at the end of the race with his kind of little whingy comments, and we're noticing a little bit more of this side of him coming out. But as Isidro said, there wasn't really much that happened, so that would be probably my dick of the day just for that. Loser of the day, I had Mercedes. It's just kind of a culmination of a few weeks of bad performances and bad luck. Hajar was a good shout as well. That was a tough break for him, but yeah, I'm going to go with Mercedes on that one.
No, definitely. I totally agree. And that is something that I can agree with you on, and a topic that we can definitely discuss with when it comes to your tick of the day, just not Liam Lawson. But anyway, moving on. My driver of the day, and of course, look, I'm going to agree with you guys. I'm giving it to Hamilton. You know, there was definitely some good shout outs there. Throughout the race, and definitely some good performances, but definitely have to give it to Hamilton. It was great to see that performance coming back for him this weekend, because it's just been difficult to watch him at Ferrari this season so far. So good performance there. My dick of the day, look, when I say you all know who I'm going to say, you all think I'm going to say Liam Lawson, but no, I'm on an Oscar Piastri mission here at the moment. He's just a whiny little bitch. That's all I'm saying. He's so ungrateful. You know, like, I know, yeah, he'll, you know, I don't know. He's just got the attitude of a fucking doorstop. That's all I'll say. You know, or the personality of a doorstop. And it's just like when things aren't going his way, he's throwing his toys out of the pram in a very calm and collected way. I'm just like, shut the fuck up. You know, just drive, just race, and just do it, you know. But Oscar Piastri is on my immediate radar now for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him, and hopefully he settles down a little bit. So yeah, he's my dick of the day, even though he won. But anyway, and my loser of the day were all of the F1 fans for having to listen to Crofty for over 3 or 4 hours because the race got delayed, because oh my god, he is just irritating to listen to. But yeah, that was my loser of the day. But anyway, moving on, we do need to talk about the predictions game, because it's been 2 weeks and I've completely forgotten what the hell's going on. So let us take a look at Belgium now. So first of all, Dave, his predictions for Belgium was going to be his top 3 was Piastri, Norris, and Verstappen, and he managed to get Piastri, Norris correct, but unfortunately Verstappen, that was a bit of a womp womp, so that was a 2-pointer there. But then he also had Stroll outside the top 10. That was a given. That was always going to happen. And also Leclerc inside the top 10. And of course, he did finish on P3. So Dave picking up 4 points there. Also, Owen, he had Norris, Piastri, and Max. So unfortunately, there was 3-0 burgers on that prediction. But then moving on, he had Hulkenberg outside the top 10, which that did happen. So that was 1 point there. And Leclerc inside the top 10. So I'm picking up some 2-pointers there. Isidro, do you want to run me through your predictions there real quick?
I had the Piastri P1, Norris P2, and Max P3. And then I had Stroll outside top 10 and Leclerc inside top 10.
Oh, look at the balls on you this weekend.
I know. 4 points.
4 points. This is, hang on, is this the most? Yeah, this is, Isidro. This is,
Yeah.
Take a moment. Take a moment. This is the most points you've scored.
We're back on the podium.
Back on the podium. That's it. That was awesome. Now I have to scroll all the way back down here. Hang on 2 seconds. There we go. But yeah, Jesus, well done, Isidro. Fair play to you. My predictions, unfortunately, they weren't that great. I had Norris, Piastri, and Max. So again, 3-0 burgers with some lettuce, ketchup, and tomato on them for me from that. And then I had Stroll outside the top 10. Because, you know, we're all, you know, that was always going to happen. And then, of course, Leclerc inside the top 10. So I managed to pick up 2 points. But Damien decided last time when we were talking that he was going to copy me. So, Damien, what are your predictions?
Having the same lineup of, you know, 3 or 4 good drivers is not copying. It's just statistics and chance. Probability, right? So I had Norris, Piastri, and Max for my 1 to 3, and Stroll was my flop outside the top 10, and Leclerc inside. So 2 points for me there on that one.
Yeah, don't follow my direction, Damien. Whatever you do,
don't follow mine.
Yeah, I don't think so. We're just not going to copy each other from now on. But yeah, look, what that pretty much results in when it comes to the actual table, we have Owen with a demanding lead on 24 points there at the moment, and then also Dave has caught up to Damien with 20 points. So it's a combined second place with Damien and Dave. And then next is myself on 16 points, and Isidro is catching up on me with 12 points. It is getting very, very spicy in the predictions table, which brings us on to our next weekend's race. Thankfully, we don't have to wait 2 or 3 bloody years for the next race to happen, because we have the Hungarian GP coming up. Now, when it comes to the predictions, the guys did send in the predictions. Owen, unfortunately, still hasn't popped in his. He's a little bit busy this weekend. Totally understandable. We'll get his predictions anyway for next weekend, and we'll call them out. But Dave, he has Piastri, Norris, and Verstappen as his P1, P2, and P3. He also has Gasly outside the top 10. Definitely think that's probably more than likely going to happen. And then also we've got Antonelli inside the top 10. That's my reaction. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Isidro, what are your predictions?
So I have Piastri P1, Norris P2, and Leclerc P3. So basically, this wicked podium. Then I have Gasly outside top 10, and I have Adjar back inside the top 10. Yeah,
I can see that happening. I can see that happen. Now, I just realized, actually, when it comes to my own predictions, I did pop my predictions in there. I'm going to kind of eat my own fist here when I say this. But I have Norris in P1. I have little bitch Piastri in P2. And then I have Russell in P3 for the Hungarian GP. And then for my flop, my big floppy flop, we have Bortoletto outside the top 10. I know. Obviously, he's been on a good run, and Sauber been on a good run, but I hope he takes one for the team for me next weekend. But where I'm probably going to eat my own fist is the fact that Antonelli inside the top 10 just after this weekend, and just thinking about what may come. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be inside the top 10. I hope he does. I really do. But finally, Damien, what are your predictions?
Yeah, you're really backing Mercedes there for a comeback next week. Antonelli inside the top 10.
I know. Well, look, Russell, he got P5 and Antonelli got P whatever. It could happen.
Let's see. I have Piastri P1, Norris P2, and Leclerc P3. So again, similar to the previous result. I have Gasly outside the top 10. For my flop, my surprise is Behrman inside the top 10.
I've just noticed what you've done there, Damien. So instead of copying me this weekend, you've copied Isidro by 90% with your predictions there. You've just looked and you've seen whoever has gotten the most points this weekend. I'm going to go with that.
Think alike, right?
That's it. I suppose that's it. But look, who knows? It could go your guys' way, or who knows? I could get all the points next week, but we'll obviously wait and see. But yeah, look, it was a great weekend. It was a bit of a pain in the ass that we had to wait over, an hour and a half before the race actually got underway. But hey, look, then be the rules and then be the FIA. But it was a good weekend nonetheless. It was good to have Formula One back on our screens. But with that being said, yes, next weekend we are back for the Hungaroring. We will definitely make sure we'll get the episode out for the correct day and time and all that kind of stuff. And thank you so much for everyone for bearing with us as we get this up and onto all the different platforms. But guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk about Belgium. It was great fun to talk about it, and it was great fun as always to hear your thoughts.
Thanks. It was nice.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to next weekend.
No problem at all. No problem at all. And as always, folks, definitely make sure, if you did enjoy today's episode, definitely make sure to click that like button if you're watching this on YouTube. Of course, if you're watching on Spotify and it has a little heart, a little thing that you can click that as well. Smash it so hard you break your phone or your device or whatever you're using. But then, of course, as well, if you enjoy what we do here, definitely make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're on YouTube and all that good stuff, just follow us and like us and do all that kind of good stuff to support us, because we'd love to know your thoughts as well on this weekend below in the comment section. So type those letters and give us your thoughts and let us know what's up. But until next weekend, folks, enjoy the rest of your week, whatever the week brings, and we will all see you for the Hungaroring. Adios.